So today, I'll be going over the pending Trevor Bauer situation and the most recent updates regarding his possible return to the major leagues in 2022. Now, before we go any further, guys, I'm going to need you to do a couple things for me, okay? First, leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. Next, smash that red button. Go subscribe. That is the best way to show your support here on the channel. Then go over, ring that bell, turn on notifications. It will let you know when exactly I'm uploading great baseball content here on this channel. And finally, if you want to get active, go down in the comment section. I'd love to hear your thoughts regarding this Trevor Bauer story. Now that that's out of the way, let's get on into it. Okay, so as you know, Trevor Bauer has been on paid administrative leave since July the 2nd of last season amid two allegations made by two separate plaintiffs in both California and Ohio that became public. Now, at the time, this news not only rocked the baseball world, but the sports world in general. But before we go any further and dive into the actual story itself involving these two cases, we have to backtrack a little bit and let's review where Trevor Bauer was just a year ago and how he got into the situation he is in now, and then I think we can make an educated assessment of what may happen to Trevor Bauer in the future 2022 season. Now, Bauer would go into the 2021 offseason as a reigning National League Cy Young Award winner of 2020. And as a result of his accomplishments, he used this as leverage when he sought to make baseball history at the time as it pertains to free agency. And he did just that. He accomplished his goal of making history, as he would eventually sign and agree to a 3-year deal worth $102 million with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now, history would be made in the form of his AAV, or average annual value, as he would be getting paid up to $32 million a year maximum, starting in year 2 of only a 3-year deal. Now, after he signed this contract in the first couple of months into the baseball season, Bauer was very, very good. And it looked like he would do something that hadn't been done by a Dodger since Clayton Kershaw did it in 2013 and 2014. And that's winning the Cy Young Award in back-to-back seasons. Because in April, he went 3-1 with a 2.48 ERA. May, he was 3-2 with a 1.98 ERA. And in June, he was only 2-2 with a 3.45 ERA, but this was mainly due to the massive bombshell that would eventually end Bauer's 2021 season. Now, of course, that bombshell was two separate claims of, let's call it, inappropriate adult behavior. And now that was brought upon by two separate women in both Ohio and California, as I mentioned earlier. Now, these claims would halt Bauer's season in its tracks, and that included the progression of his social media presence, particularly here on YouTube. So as a result of these two women stepping forward, MLB was forced to step in themselves and place Bauer on paid administrative leave. And unfortunately for Bauer, this situation wasn't able to be resolved before the end of the baseball season. This meant Bauer's forced leave lasted the entirety of the remaining baseball schedule, which included the MLB playoffs. So now that we've kind of reviewed the basic stuff, I want to go over the Ohio and the California cases individually. With that said, let's first look at the Ohio case. So the Ohio case dated back to 2017, and the plaintiff was seeking a, quote, temporary restraining order against Bauer. This came out of an ex parte proceeding due to threatening messages he had allegedly sent her. Now, one of these alleged messages reads as follows, quote, "I don't feel like spending time in jail for blanking someone, and that's what would happen if I saw you again." This is according to the Washington Post. Now, I do want to mention that this quote I just read you was just one of allegedly many threatening messages that the Ohio woman claims Bauer sent her. Now, although the one I just read you seems pretty damning, the plaintiff would eventually drop the pending restraining order against Bauer voluntarily. So the Ohio case is basically done and over with. But again, there's a second one, the California one. So now let's review that one real quick. So the California one dates back to April of 2021, a lot more recent, in which the plaintiff in this case also accused Bauer of, let's call it, inappropriate adult behavior, which resulted in many unexpected injuries following their intimate encounter. Now, if you want to know, just for yourself, what type of unexpected injuries this woman suffered, you can check out the link in the article I'll leave down below in the description, or you can check out my original video on this case that is above my head, because that one has already been demonetized by YouTube. Thank you, YouTube. And I'm really trying to avoid that here in this video, so that's why I'm being pretty vague. Now, the only difference between the California case and the Ohio case is that the California case is still pending an official outcome, and that is why news has been slow all season and off season when it comes to this ongoing Trevor Bauer story. However, it seems that an article from fansided.com seems to shed some light on when an outcome could arise in this California case and what Bauer's future holds. So, the article from fansided.com says, quote, "He's attempting to make a return to relevancy with his activity on social media, but many objective Twitter users would say he's been unsuccessful." Now, I also want to mention real quick, I was quite shocked that Trevor Bauer came back to YouTube mid-season with no outcome in this California case. I was shocked when that happened, but I guess more power to him. But I digress and go on to say, quote, "Nobody really wants to hear from him, and just about everyone wants a decision in this case after 6 long months." But unfortunately, it's just not that simple. The DA's office, especially with cases involving high-profile individuals, exercises caution when handing down charges. But could we be nearing a beginning of the end? Well, here's the latest from Britt Garfloy, hope I'm saying the name right, from The Athletic, answering the question about when the LA District Attorney's Office will make a decision on this Bauer case. And Britt goes on to say this, quote, "This is where it gets interesting. While each case is different, taking more than 4 months to render a decision is pretty atypical. Multiple sources indicated Bauer's case wouldn't be decided one way or the other until at least January, and it has little, if anything, to do with the holiday. A case as high profile as Bauer's will command more scrutiny regardless of whether the DA decides to charge Bauer or not. The other problem after the case is decided is that there's a lockout at the moment, and while MLB is still allowed to gather information and interview subjects that might be available to them providing insight, it's unclear if the league will be able to conduct a player interview with Bauer once we get to that point." Britt notes that usually that point is the last step of the process. And finally, he concludes by saying, quote, "All in all, MLB cannot move forward without a decision from the DA's office, which is a main reason we haven't gotten any updates or news regarding a suspension or potential void of contract," which he mentioned would be another significant obstacle, end quote. So now that we have reviewed all of the available details involving these two cases, mainly the California case, let's look at some potential realistic outcomes for Trevor Bauer, because that's what we all want to know here, right? Now, I do want to mention real quick that these 3 outcomes I did come up with myself, but I believe they're realistic enough to where they could actually happen, okay? So these are my ideas. Outcome number 1 is that Bauer is found guilty of all of these charges. Thus, he has to pay fine, or in other words, medical expenses to the woman. And when it comes to MLB's punishment, they would suspend him up to a minimum of 60 games or a maximum of 1 full season with no pay. Because remember, when he was not playing last season, he still got paid. Then the Dodgers would somehow buy out his contract, and then he'd become a free agent after the 2022 season, and then he'd be on his own. That's the first outcome. Outcome number 2 is that he is found innocent of all charges. He does not receive a suspension by MLB. He picks up his player option for 2022. He gets paid in full and pitches the entire 2022 season for the Dodgers. And this story is forgotten about by the All-Star break of next year. That's outcome number 2. The best one for Bauer, really. And finally, outcome number 3 is that Bauer is found innocent of all charges. MLB does not suspend him for the upcoming 2022 season. However, the Dodgers still decide they want Bauer out of LA because his teammates still do not like him, and they think, regardless of the outcome, his presence in the clubhouse causes problems. Thus, Bauer picks up his 2022 option. Then the Dodgers and Bauer mutually agree on a trade to, let's say, the Angels or my Tigers, because both teams need experienced starting pitching. So they trade Bauer to one of those two teams or somewhere else for a boatload of prospects in return. But the Dodgers still agree to cover all, if not most, of his remaining salary. And that would include covering Bauer's salary if Trevor decides to pick up the option on the final year of his deal. So those are my 3 potential outcomes I could see happening for Trevor Bauer next season. And that's all I got. So like, comment, and subscribe. Comment down below your thoughts of what you think could happen to Trevor Bauer in 2022. And as always, I'll catch you guys later.